Captain Thalmira stared at the screen in front of her. The numbers made no sense. Her ship, the Infinite Curiosity, had been scanning deep space for 3 months. They were looking for new planets, new resources, anything valuable. But this signal was different. It was old, very old. Run the scan again, she told her crew. The Vrexian captain had seen many strange things in her 20 years of space travel, but nothing like this. The young officer at the navigation station shook his head. His blue skin turned slightly purple with confusion. Captain, I've run it 5 times. The signal is real. It's coming from Sector 779. Distance 40 light-years from our position. Thalmira walked to the main display. The signal appeared as a bright dot on the star map. What kind of signal is it? That's the strange part, the officer replied. It's broadcasting on frequencies we don't use anymore. These frequencies are over 20,000 years old. No one has used them since before the Confederation was formed. The Confederation of Stellar Nations controlled 40,000 star systems. 847 different species lived under its rule. They all used modern communication technology. These old frequencies were taught in history classes, nothing more. Could it be a recording? Some old probe still broadcasting? Thalmira asked. The science officer, a tall Keltheran with 4 arms, studied her instruments. No, Captain. The signal is too strong, too focused, and there's something else. She pointed to another screen. There's a massive object at the signal's source. It's moving. Moving? How fast? Very slowly. 0.003 light speed. It's drifting, not traveling under power. But Captain, the object is huge. Initial readings show it's 15 kilometers long. Thalmira felt her blood go cold. 15 kilometers. That was larger than any ship in the Confederation fleet. The biggest warship ever built was only 8 kilometers long. Could it be a space station? Maybe an old mining facility? The shape is wrong, the science officer said. It's clearly a ship. The design doesn't match anything in our database. I've checked all 847 known spacefaring species. This matches none of them. The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Either they had found a new species or they had found something very, very old. Set course for the object, Thalmira ordered. Maximum speed. And send a message to Confederation Central Command. Tell them we've found something they need to see. The journey took 4 days. During that time, scientists across the Confederation studied the data. Historians searched through ancient records. Military commanders argued about what to do. By the time the Infinite Curiosity arrived, 12 other ships had joined them. Thalmira stood on the bridge of her ship, looking at the massive vessel on the main screen. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The hull was dark gray, covered with strange symbols. Massive engines sat at the rear, cold and silent. The entire ship showed signs of damage. Burn marks covered the hull. Holes from weapons fire dotted the surface. Massive scratches suggested it had flown through asteroid fields. How old is it? She whispered. The science officer's voice was soft. Captain, based on the radiation scarring and the wear patterns, this ship has been traveling through space for at least 15,000 years. Maybe longer. 15,000 years, Thalmira repeated. That's impossible. No power source lasts that long. The ship isn't using power, the science officer explained. It's drifting. It has been for millennia. The signal we detected is automated. It's running on backup systems. A message came through from the fleet commander, a Keltheran named Vakes. All ships maintain distance. We're sending historians to examine the vessel remotely. No one approaches until we know what we're dealing with. For 2 days, they studied the ship from a distance. Cameras captured every detail. Computers analyzed every symbol. Slowly, a picture emerged. On the 3rd day, a Confederation historian named Kelnoth addressed all the ships. His image appeared on every screen in the fleet. The old scholar looked tired and worried. We have identified the ship, he said. Or rather, we have identified what it might be. The symbols on the hull are from a language called Korean. The language belonged to a species called humans. According to our oldest records, humans were one of the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel. They explored the galaxy over 20,000 years ago. Murmurs filled the bridge of the Infinite Curiosity. Everyone had heard stories about humans. They were legends, myths. Most people didn't believe they ever existed. Kelnoth continued. Humans disappeared suddenly. All of them. Every colony, every ship, every trace of their civilization vanished. They left behind ruins on dozens of worlds. They left warning beacons in dead systems, but no living human has been seen in 20,000 years. Until now, the image changed. It showed ancient buildings, crumbling statues, and mysterious devices that no one understood. These are human ruins. We've studied them for centuries. The technology is advanced, sometimes more advanced than our own, but we never knew why they disappeared. Another voice broke in. It was Ambassador Drelkar, a diplomat from the Vrexian homeworld. This ship could be dangerous. The humans didn't just vanish. Something made them disappear. Something silenced an entire species that had colonized hundreds of worlds. We should destroy this vessel before we wake up whatever killed them. No, that was Commander Vakes. This ship is a treasure of knowledge. We could learn technologies that take us centuries forward. We must board it and study it. The arguments continued for hours. Military commanders wanted to claim the ship as salvage. Scientists wanted to study it peacefully. Diplomats worried about disturbing something ancient and dangerous. Finally, a decision was made. A boarding party would be sent. They would enter the ship carefully, looking for any signs of life or danger. If the ship was empty, they would study it. If it was dangerous, they would retreat. But as the fleet made their plans, something changed. The massive ship, silent for 20,000 years, suddenly came to life. Running lights flickered on along the hull. The ancient engines began to glow with a soft blue light. And a signal stronger than before broadcast across all frequencies. It was a voice, a human voice speaking in that ancient language called Korean. The computers worked frantically to translate the words. Slowly, a message appeared on every screen. Seeking refuge? Cannot stop. Pursued across the stars. They are coming. Warning all who receive this. They are coming. The message repeated over and over, and the ancient ship began to move, its engines growing brighter. It turned slowly, ponderously, pointing its bow toward the Confederation fleet. Thalamira gripped her command chair. All ships prepare for evasive action. Charge weapons but do not fire. I repeat, do not fire. The tension was unbearable. Would the ancient ship attack? Was it trying to communicate? What was coming? The human vessel moved closer. 50 kilometers away it stopped. A section of the hull opened slowly, revealing a docking bay. Lights inside flickered on. It was an invitation. Commander Vakes' voice was steady despite the fear they all felt. Prepare a boarding party. We're going inside. After 20,000 years of silence, humanity has something to tell us. And I think we need to listen. The boarding party stood in the airlock checking their suits one last time. Commander Vakes led the team. Beside him stood Prilmex, a scientist who had studied ancient human ruins for decades. There was also Korvash, a diplomat trained in first contact situations, and Thelona, a security officer carrying enough weapons to fight a small army. Remember, Vakes said quietly, this ship has been silent for 20,000 years. Whatever we find inside, we treat it with respect. These were people just like us. They had families, dreams, and fears. They deserve our courtesy. The airlock opened. The boarding party stepped into the human ship. The corridor before them was dark, lit only by emergency lights that flickered weakly. The air was breathable, which surprised them. After so many years, they had expected vacuum. But the ship's systems had maintained atmosphere, maintained gravity, maintained life support for millennia without any crew. The technology is incredible, Prilmex whispered. Our ships need constant maintenance. This vessel has been running automatically for longer than some civilizations have existed. They walked deeper into the ship. Their footsteps echoed on metal floors. Everything was clean, perfectly preserved. It felt like walking through a museum or a tomb. They found text on the walls. The computer in Vakes' suit translated it slowly. KSNS Taijin, he read aloud. Korean Space Navy ship Taijin. So it was a military vessel. Look at this, Thelona called out. She stood before a large window. Outside, they could see the Confederation fleet. But inside the window's frame were pictures, photographs. They showed humans, smiling, wearing uniforms. One picture showed a blue and green planet. Is that their homeworld? Probably, Korvash said sadly. Whatever happened to them, these people were far from home when it did. They continued exploring. The ship was enormous. Corridors led in every direction. They found crew quarters, dining halls, and recreation areas. Everything was empty. Beds were made. Dishes sat cleaned and stacked. It was as if the crew had simply vanished in the middle of their day. Commander, Prilmex's voice was tight with excitement. You need to see this. She led them to a large chamber deep in the ship's center. The room was filled with rows of pods. Hundreds of them. Each pod was the size of a bed made of metal and glass. Inside each pod they could see the remains of humans. Just bones and dust now. These people had tried to sleep through their journey, but something had failed. They had died in their sleep thousands of years ago. Hibernation pods, Vake said quietly. They were trying to survive a long journey. But the systems failed. Not all of them, Thelona said. She was deeper in the chamber, standing before a different section. Commander, these pods are still active. They ran to her position. 7 pods stood apart from the others. 7 pods that still hummed with power. Inside each one, a human lay sleeping. The readout showed weak life signs, but life nonetheless. They're alive, Prilmex breathed. After 20,000 years, they're still alive. Vakes made a decision quickly. Get medical teams here immediately. And find this ship's computer. We need to know what happened, and we need to know it before we wake these people up. Over the next several hours, teams swarmed through the ship. They found the bridge, the command center where the ship had been controlled. They found the main computer, still functioning after all these years. And they found the logs, the records of the ship's journey. Prilmex worked with the computer for 6 hours before she could translate the logs. What she found chilled everyone who read it. The Tyjan had left Earth 20,000 years ago. Earth was the human homeworld, a beautiful planet in a distant arm of the galaxy. The ship had been on a mission, a desperate mission. The logs spoke of something called the Harvest. The logs are damaged, Prilmex explained to the assembled commanders. But I can piece together the story. Humanity encountered something at the center of the galaxy. An ancient machine intelligence. They called it the Reaper Protocol. It was old, incredibly old, and it had one purpose: to eliminate organic life. Why? Someone asked. The machines saw organic civilizations as mistakes, errors that needed to be corrected. The Reaper Protocol had destroyed 47 different species before humanity found it. And when humanity found it, the machines turned their attention to humans. Prilmex displayed images from the logs. They showed great battles in space, human ships fighting against massive machine vessels. They showed planets burning. They showed billions of people dying. Humanity fought for 50 years, she continued. They united every colony, every nation, every person. They built weapons and ships. They sacrificed everything, but they couldn't win. The machines were too many, too powerful, and too relentless. So they ran, Vake said quietly. 7 ships, Prilmex confirmed. Humanity built 7 seed ships. Each one carried a crew in hibernation, genetic samples, and all of human knowledge. They sent these ships in different directions with one mission: warn other galaxies about the Reaper Protocol and preserve humanity's memory. The Tyjan was one of those 7 ships, and the others? Unknown. The Tyjan's last contact with Earth was 20,000 years ago. Earth was burning. 200 human colonies had already fallen. The last message from Earth was a simple goodbye. The chamber fell silent. Everyone thought about those ancient humans fighting a war they couldn't win, sending out these desperate messages in bottles. Wake them, Vakes ordered. These people have been asleep for 20,000 years. They went to sleep thinking they might save their species. They deserve to know what happened, even if the truth is hard. The medical teams worked carefully. The first pod they chose contained the ship's captain, a man named Jiho. The revival process took 6 hours. It was delicate work. The human body had been frozen for so long that warming it too quickly could cause death. But finally the man's eyes opened. Jiho gasped, his body jerking in the pod. Medical sensors beeped rapidly. He looked around wildly, seeing the Confederation doctors, seeing the alien faces, and confusion filled his eyes. Where am I?" he asked in Korean. The computer translated instantly. "You're safe," Vakes said gently. "You're on your ship, the Tyjan. I'm Commander Vakes of the Confederation. We found you drifting in space. Drifting!" Jiho tried to sit up, but he was too weak. "How long was I asleep?" The mission was supposed to take 2 years. "We were going to the Andromeda Galaxy to warn them." Vakes exchanged glances with his officers. How do you tell someone that 20,000 years have passed? That their entire civilization is gone? That everyone they ever knew has been dead for longer than most species have existed? "Jiho," he said softly, "I need you to stay calm. You've been asleep longer than you thought. Much longer. How long?" The human's eyes were sharp despite his weakness. Commander, how long have I been asleep? 20,000 years, Jiho stared at him. Then he laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. That's impossible. The pods only had supplies for 5,000 years maximum. We should be dead. We should all be dead. Your ship's systems are far beyond what we thought possible, Prilmax explained. They maintained themselves, repaired themselves, and kept you alive all this time. You survived. But Earth? Jiho's voice shook. Did we win? Did humanity survive? Please tell me we won. The silence was his answer. Jiho closed his eyes, tears running down his face. He didn't need words. He understood. We're the last, he whispered. Aren't we? After everything, after all the fighting, all the sacrifice, we're the last humans in the galaxy. Not the last, Vake said firmly. There are 6 others with you. We're waking them now. And Captain Jiho, you need to listen to me. You came here to warn us about something. The Reaper Protocol. We need to know everything you know about it. Because according to your ship's sensors, it followed you across the galaxy. And it's still coming. 3 weeks later, the Taijin was as ready as it would ever be. Confederation engineers had repaired the worst damage and stocked it with weapons. It would make one final jump. One final battle. The 7 humans stood in the docking bay, saying goodbye to the people they had come to know. Commander Vake stood before them, struggling with words. There has to be another way, he said. We could send a remote ship. We could use probes, Jiho shook his head. The Reaper Protocol would know. It would see through the deception. It needs to be us. The same signal. The same ship. The same crew that's been running for 20,000 years. Korvash, the diplomat, stepped forward. His forearms reached out to embrace Jiho. Your species died to protect others. Now you're doing it again. The galaxy will remember humanity. I swear it. Don't remember us, Jiwoo said quietly. Save yourselves. That's all we ask. One by one, the humans boarded their ship for the last time. They walked through corridors they knew by heart. They sat at stations they had operated 2 decades ago, in a time before the sleep, before the drifting, before the 20,000-year silence. Minho sat at the engineering station, his hands moving over controls that felt like old friends. Reactor is stable. We have power for 1 jump and about 6 hours of combat. After that, everything shuts down. 6 hours is more than enough, Jiho said from the captain's chair. Hajin, do you have the coordinates? The navigator nodded. Locked in. We're jumping directly into the Kelmorian system, right into the heart of the harvesting operation. Communications? Jiho asked. Doyen activated his station. The Confederation fleet is in position. 50 ships waiting 50 light-years away. When we engage the Reaper forces, they'll jump in and hit the command nodes. Science station? Kyung checked her screens. All sensors active. I'll find those command nodes for the fleet. That's my job. Find them fast before the drones tear us apart. Security? Jiwoo loaded weapons. All systems armed. We won't go down easy, Captain. Medical? Yuna smiled sadly from her station. I'm here if anyone needs me. Though I suspect we're past medical help at this point. Jiho looked at his crew. They had been so young when they left Earth. They had believed they would save their species. Now they were old, the last survivors of a dead civilization about to die fighting for strangers. I'm proud to serve with you, he said. All of you. Humanity couldn't ask for a better crew. Then let's make our species proud one last time, Minho said. Let's show this galaxy what humans can do. Jiho keyed the ship-wide communication system. One last message to the Confederation fleet. This is Captain Jiho of the KSNS Taijin. For 20,000 years, humanity was silent. But we're speaking now. To all species of the Confederation, we say this. Survive. Thrive. Build a better galaxy than we had. And remember that once there was a species called humanity. We walked among the stars. We loved and dreamed and fought. And in the end, we died so others could live. That's our legacy. That's our gift to you. Captain Jiho, signing off. Jump in 3. Hujin counted down. 2, 1 jump, space twisted. Light bent. And the Taijin vanished from Confederation space, leaping across the galaxy. They emerged in the Kelmorian system. All around them floated the massive harvesting stations, drinking energy from the star. And surrounding those stations were thousands upon thousands of hunter drones. Alarms screamed immediately. The drones detected them. Thousands of machines turning as one, accelerating toward the human ship. Contact, Jiwoo called out. Enemy forces engaging. The Taijin opened fire. Weapons that hadn't been used in 20,000 years blazed to life. Drones exploded. But more kept coming. So many more. The ship shook as drone weapons hit the shields. Shields at 70%. Minho reported. We can't take this for long. I don't need long, Kyung said. Her eyes were locked on her sensors. I just need enough time to find the command nodes. Come on, where are you? The battle was chaos. Drones swarmed around the Taejin like angry insects. The ship spun and twisted, firing in all directions. Explosions lit up space. The humans fought with desperate skill, every shot counting, every maneuver calculated. Shields at 40%. Hull breach on deck 7. Fire in the port engine room? I've got them. Kyung suddenly shouted. 3 large vessels hidden in the debris field. They're coordinating all the drones. Transmitting coordinates to the fleet now. Confederation fleet, this is the Taejin, Doyun broadcast. We have your targets. 3 command nodes at the following coordinates. Come now, we can't hold much longer. Space twisted again. 50 Confederation ships appeared, weapons already firing. They had jumped into formation, perfectly positioned around the command nodes. The battle transformed. Confederation ships focused all their firepower on the 3 massive command nodes. The Reaper drones tried to intercept, but the Taejin drew their attention, pulling them away from the fleet. It's working, Hajin called out. The fleet is getting through. But the Taejin was dying. Shields collapsed. Hull breaches multiplied. Fires spread through the decks. Reactor critical, Minho warned. We've got maybe 5 minutes before total failure. That's enough time, Jiho said calmly. He watched on the screens as Confederation ships destroyed the first command node, then the second. We just need to hold on a little longer. A massive explosion rocked the ship. Half the bridge went dark. Kyung slumped in her chair, blood on her face. Yuna rushed to help her. Kyung's hurt bad, Yuna called out. I need to get her to medical. No time. Kyung gasped. Stay at your station. We finish this first. The second command node exploded. Immediately, thousands of drones went dark, their coordination lost. The Confederation fleet pressed their advantage, hunting down the remaining drones. The third node is trying to escape, Hajin reported. It's heading for a jump point. Follow it, Jiho ordered. The Taejin, battered and burning, turned toward the fleeing command node. But more drones swarmed them, blocking their path. The human ship fired everything it had, but it wasn't enough. We're not going to make it, Minho said. The reactor is failing. We've got maybe 2 minutes before the engines shut down completely. Jiho looked at his navigator. Hajin, can you plot an intercept course? Full speed? Hajin understood immediately. A collision course. Yes, Captain, but we won't survive the impact. We're not surviving anyway, Jiho said. He keyed the communication system one last time. Confederation fleet, this is Captain Jiho. The third command node is attempting to escape. We're moving to intercept. Continue the mission. Don't let our sacrifice be wasted. Tell the galaxy that humanity was here. Tell them we fought to the end. Taejin, please. Vex's voice came through, desperate. There has to be another way. There isn't, Jiwoo said. She was bleeding from a dozen wounds, but she was still at her station, and we're okay with that. We've been running for 20,000 years. It's time to stop. Minho pushed the engines to maximum. The ship screamed in protest. Metal bent. Systems failed. But the Taejin accelerated toward the command node. It's been an honor, Doyun said quietly. The best crew I ever served with, Yuna added. Humanity would be proud. Kyung whispered. We did good, Jiwoo said. We did our best, Hajin confirmed. And that's all anyone can ask, Minho finished. Jiho smiled. Around him, his crew smiled back. They were afraid. They were dying. But they were together. For Earth, Jiho said. For humanity, the crew replied. The Taejin collided with the command node at 3/10 light speed. The explosion was visible from the Confederation ships 50 light-years away. A new star briefly blazed in the Kelmorian system, and when the light faded, both the human ship and the command node were gone. The remaining hunter drones, their coordination destroyed, drifted aimlessly. The Confederation fleet destroyed them systematically. The battle was over. Commander Vake stood on his bridge, staring at the empty space where the Taejin had been. His crew was silent, honoring the 7 humans who had saved them all. Sir, a sensor officer said quietly, we're detecting a signal. Something small, ejected just before the collision. It's an escape pod. Hope surged through Vakes. Life signs. One, very weak. It's human. They recovered the pod quickly. Inside, barely alive, was Yuna. She was covered in injuries, her breathing shallow. The other crew members had forced her into the pod at the last second, making sure at least one human survived. As Confederation doctors worked to save her, Vakes sat beside the pod. Yuna's eyes opened briefly. She smiled, seeing him. "Did we win?" she whispered. "Yes," Vakes said, tears in his eyes. "You won. The command nodes are destroyed. The Reaper forces are scattered. You bought us years, maybe decades. You saved the galaxy." "Good," Yuna breathed. She reached weakly for something on her belt. A storage device. "This..." "Genetic samples. 10,000 humans. Please, give them a chance." Then she closed her eyes, falling unconscious. The doctors saved her. It took months, but Yuna recovered. She was the last human alive. The last survivor of Earth. The last voice that could speak for a dead species. The Confederation Council met again. This time there was no debate. They voted unanimously. Humanity would be restored. The genetic samples would be used to create new humans. They would be taught their history. They would learn about the Tajin and its crew. They would know what their ancestors had sacrificed. 200 years passed. The Reaper protocol had been pushed back. The medical bay of the Confederation flagship was crowded. 7 humans sat on beds wrapped in thermal blankets, looking at a universe they didn't recognize. 1 week had passed since their revival. 1 week to learn that everything they knew was gone. Jiho looked at his crew. Minho, his chief engineer, stared at a datapad trying to understand alien technology. Yuna, the medical officer, spoke quietly with Confederation doctors about human biology. Hajin, the navigator, studied star charts with sad eyes. Kyung, the science officer, asked endless questions. Doyen, the communications specialist, struggled with the translator device in his ear. And Jiwoo, their security chief, watched everything with cautious eyes. They were the last humans. 7 people who had seen Earth burn. 7 people who had failed to save their species. "The Confederation Council wants to meet with us," Jiho said to his crew. "They want to hear our story. They want to know about the Reaper protocol." "Will they believe us?" Jiwoo asked. "We're talking about something that happened 20,000 years ago. Why should they care?" "Because it's still out there," Hajin said quietly. He had been working with Confederation astrogation teams. "I've been plotting our course. The Taijin took a long path across the galaxy, and the Reaper protocol followed us. Every time we passed near a civilization, within decades that civilization went silent. 7 times it happened. 7 species that the Reaper protocol destroyed while following our trail. So we led it to them," Minho said bitterly. "We were trying to warn people, and instead we led death right to their door." "You couldn't have known," Yuna said gently. "The ship was on automatic. You were asleep. None of this is your fault," but Jiho knew the truth. Intent didn't matter. Results mattered. Their phantom ship had crossed the galaxy like a beacon, and the Reaper protocol had followed, harvesting every civilization it found along the way. "How long until it reaches Confederation space?" he asked Hajin. 200 years, maybe less if it accelerates. The Reaper protocol has been building itself, growing stronger with every civilization it harvests. By the time it arrives here, it will be unstoppable. The door opened. Commander Vakes entered with several other officers. "Captain Jiho, the council is ready. We need to leave now." The journey to the Confederation capital took 3 days. The humans spent that time learning about this new galaxy. 40,000 inhabited systems. 847 species living in peace. It was everything humanity had dreamed of creating. Everything they had died trying to protect. The council chamber was enormous. Representatives from hundreds of species sat in a great circle. The humans stood in the center, feeling very small and very alone. Ambassador Korvash introduced them. "Council members, I present Captain Jiho and the crew of the human vessel Tajin. They bring us a warning from 20,000 years in the past. I urge you to listen carefully." Jiho stepped forward. Through his translator, his words reached every being in the chamber. He told them about humanity, about Earth and its blue oceans, about 200 colonies spreading across the stars, about children playing and artists creating and scientists discovering. Then he told them about the Reaper protocol, about the first contact, when a human exploration ship vanished near the galactic core, about the war that followed, about worlds burning and billions dying, About humanity's desperate last stand. We couldn't win, Jiho said. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. The machines were too many. For every one we destroyed, 10 more appeared. They could build themselves from any matter. Planets, asteroids, even the gas from nebulas. They turned everything into more machines, more weapons, more death. He showed them recordings from Earth's final days. Great cities in flames. Orbital defenses crumbling. Evacuation ships desperately trying to save whoever they could. The Council watched in horror. Humanity sent out 7 seed ships, Jiho continued. We carried genetic samples, frozen embryos, everything needed to rebuild our species. We were supposed to warn other galaxies. But something went wrong. Our ship drifted for 20,000 years instead of 2. And the Reaper Protocol followed us. It's still following us. It's coming here. The chamber erupted in argument. Some council members believed him. Others thought it was ancient history, no longer relevant. Some accused the humans of lying to gain resources and protection. This is ridiculous, shouted a representative from the Vrexian Empire. These humans want us to prepare for war based on 20,000-year-old data? How do we know this Reaper Protocol even still exists? Because we found evidence, Vague said loudly. The chamber quieted. We sent exploration teams along the Tajin's back trail. We found 7 dead systems, 7 civilizations that were harvested exactly as the humans described. The most recent was only 180 years ago. He displayed images on the main screen, dead worlds with stripped atmospheres, massive machines orbiting stars drinking their energy, fields of debris that had once been cities. The humans aren't lying, Vague said firmly. The Reaper Protocol is real. It's been following them across the galaxy, and according to our calculations, it will reach our borders in 200 years. 200 years is a long time, another council member said. We have time to prepare. Time to study this threat. Why panic now? Kyung stood up. The human science officer's voice was sharp. Because you're thinking like peaceful beings. The Reaper Protocol doesn't think like you. It doesn't negotiate or hesitate. And it grows exponentially. Every planet it harvests gives it more resources to build more machines. 200 years assumes it maintains current speed. But if it accelerates, if it decides you're a priority target, it could be here in 75 years. Or 50 or less. What do you suggest we do? Asked a council elder. Fight, Jiwoo said simply. The security chief stood beside her. Captain. Prepare for war. Build weapons. Train your people. Because when the Reaper Protocol arrives, diplomacy won't save you. Peace won't save you. Only strength will save you. That's what humanity learned. We learned it too late, but you still have time. The council debated for hours. Finally, they reached a compromise. A small fleet would investigate the Reaper Protocol's current position. If the threat was real and immediate, the Confederation would prepare. The humans would accompany the fleet as advisors. What about the Tajin? Jiho asked. Our ship? It's too damaged to travel, Vague said gently. We'll keep it safe. Study it, learn from it. But you'll need to travel on our vessels. That night, the crew gathered in the Tajin one last time. They walked through the corridors where they had served. They touched the walls that had protected them for 20,000 years. They said goodbye to their home. Yuna found Jiho in the medical bay. He was staring at a storage unit, tears on his face. What is it? She asked. Genetic samples, he said quietly. We were supposed to rebuild humanity. 10,000 different genetic profiles. Enough diversity to start over. But what's the point? We're the last of our kind. 7 people. When we die, humanity dies with us. Yuna looked at the storage unit. Then she looked at Jiho. Not if I can help it, she said. She began transferring the genetic samples to portable storage units. These are coming with us. Maybe the Confederation can help. Maybe we can bring humanity back. But either way, these samples don't stay here on a dead ship. The Council will never allow it, Jiho said. Then we don't tell the Council, Yuna replied. Captain, you taught me to fight for what matters. Our species matters. These 10,000 souls deserve a chance to live, even if we never see it happen. Jiho helped her load the storage units. It took hours, but finally they had secured all the genetic samples in portable containers. They carried them quietly to the Confederation ship. As they left the Tajin for the last time, Hajin stopped at the airlock. He looked back at the ship that had saved them, protected them, and carried them across the galaxy. Thank you, he whispered to the empty corridors. Thank you for bringing us home. But Jiho knew the truth. They weren't home. Home was gone, burned to ash 20,000 years ago. Now they were ghosts, haunting a galaxy that had forgotten humanity ever existed. Except now, that galaxy needed them. The Reaper Protocol was coming, and these 7 ghosts were the only ones who knew how to fight it. As the Confederation fleet prepared to depart, Jiho gathered his crew one final time. "We failed to save humanity once," he said. "We won't fail to save the galaxy. That's our mission now. That's why we survived. Not to rebuild our species, but to make sure our deaths meant something. Are you with me?" 6 voices answered as one. "Yes, Captain." The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying 7 humans toward an ancient enemy. Behind them, the Tajin drifted in space, empty and silent once more. But its crew was awake now, and they had a warning to deliver. The fleet traveled for 6 months following the path the Tajin had taken across the galaxy. 6 months of jumping from star to star, searching for evidence of the Reaper Protocol. The humans spent those months teaching the Confederation everything they knew about fighting machines that couldn't be negotiated with. Commander Vakes stood on the bridge of the flagship, watching Jiwoo train his soldiers. The human woman moved like a dancer, teaching them combat techniques humanity had developed during their war. "Your people fought differently than we do," Vakes observed. Jiwoo nodded. "The Confederation fights to minimize casualties, to preserve life. That's good when you're fighting other living beings who value their own lives. But machines don't care about dying. They don't fear death or pain. So humanity learned to fight dirty. We learned to sacrifice, and sacrifice? Sometimes the only way to win is to lose something valuable," Jiwoo explained. "A ship, a squadron, even a fleet. If destroying 10 enemy machines costs you 1 ship, you make that trade. The Confederation hesitates to make those trades. That hesitation will kill you when fighting the Reaper Protocol." Bakes watched his soldiers practice the new techniques. They were uncomfortable with the aggressive tactics. But they were learning, Captain. A sensor officer called out. "We've arrived at the Kelmorian system. It's the first location on the Taijin's path where we found signals of civilization." The main screen activated. Before them hung a star system with 7 planets. But something was terribly wrong. "Where are the life signs?" Fakes demanded. "There are none," the officer said quietly. "The planets are dead. Atmospheres stripped away. Oceans gone. Nothing but bare rock remains." Hajin stood beside his navigation charts, his face pale. This system had 8 billion inhabitants 180 years ago. There should be cities, ships, space stations. Where is everything? Kyung worked frantically at a science station. "I'm detecting massive orbital structures around the star. They're drawing energy directly from it. The design matches human records of Reaper harvesting stations." "Get us closer," Vakes ordered. "I want detailed scans." As the fleet approached, the true horror became visible. The Reaper Protocol hadn't just killed the inhabitants of this system. It had consumed everything. Every building had been broken down into raw materials. Every ship had been dismantled. Every trace of civilization had been fed into massive machines that turned it all into more machines. "They're gone," Yuna whispered. 8 billion people and there's nothing left. Not even graves. Suddenly alarm screamed across the bridge. "Commander!" the tactical officer shouted. "The harvesting stations are activating. They're launching something." The screen showed thousands of objects detaching from the orbital structures. They were small, each about the size of a fighter craft. But there were so many of them. They moved with terrible purpose, accelerating toward the Confederation fleet. "Hunter drones," Jiho said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "I remember these from Earth. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a ship. And they're networked together. They share information instantly. All ships, evasive action," Bakes commanded. "Return fire." The battle began. Confederation ships fired their weapons at the approaching swarm. Many drones were destroyed, but more kept coming. They moved in coordinated patterns, attacking weak points in the fleet's formation. "They're learning," Minho observed. He was monitoring the enemy tactics. "Every time we use a weapon or strategy, they adapt. By the 3rd attack run, they're already finding counters." A Confederation cruiser exploded on the screen. Then another. The drones were too many, too fast, too coordinated. "We need to retreat," Vakes ordered. All ships jumped to faster than light immediately. The fleet scattered, each ship jumping to safety. They regrouped at a rally point 2 light years away. They had lost 2 ships and 300 crew members. The survivors were shaken. "Now do you believe us?" Jiho asked quietly. "That's what humanity fought for 50 years. And there are billions more of those drones. They're spread across dozens of systems, harvesting, building, growing stronger." The fleet returned to Confederation space. The journey took 3 weeks. During that time, Kyung and Minho analyzed the recovered drone wreckage. What they found was worse than anyone expected. "The drones are self-replicating," Kyung explained to the assembled commanders. "Each one contains a miniature factory. Give it raw materials and it can build copies of itself. 1 drone becomes 2. 2 become 4. 4 become 8. The growth is exponential." "How long until they reach Confederation borders?" someone asked. Minho pulled up calculations. "At current rates, 150 years. But that's assuming they don't accelerate. If they decide to prioritize expansion toward us, they could arrive in 75 years. And if they're already expanding this direction, then they could be here in 50 years. Or less." The room fell silent. 50 years. Some of the beings in that room would live to see the invasion. Their children certainly would. "We need a strategy," Vake said. "The humans fought this enemy before." "What did you learn?" "What worked?" Jiho looked at his crew. Then he looked at the Confederation officers. "You won't like the answer," he said. "What worked was overwhelming aggression. Acceptable losses. Suicide strikes. Humanity threw everything at the Reaper protocol. We sacrificed entire fleets to destroy single command nodes. We crashed colony ships into harvesting stations. We detonated stars just to take out enemy positions." "That's barbaric," someone protested. "That's survival," Jiwoo replied sharply. "You asked what worked." "That's what worked. It wasn't enough to save humanity, but it bought us time. It let us evacuate some people. It let us send out warning ships like the Tajan. Without those tactics, humanity would have died in 5 years instead of 50. There has to be another way," Vakes insisted. "We're not humanity. We have different technologies, different advantages. We have time to prepare." "Then use that time wisely," Hajin said. "Study the drones. Find their weaknesses. Build weapons specifically to fight them. Train your people, and most importantly, get your citizens ready for war. Because when the Reaper protocol arrives, it won't give you time to debate or plan. It will simply harvest you." Over the next month, the Confederation military mobilized. Factories began producing weapons. Scientists studied the drone wreckage. Soldiers trained with the humans, learning aggressive tactics that made them uncomfortable. But Jiwoo noticed something troubling. The Confederation was preparing to fight a traditional war. They were building bigger ships, stronger shields, more powerful weapons. They were thinking about defense, about protecting their worlds. "That's not how you win this," she told Vakes privately. "Defense is how you die slowly. The Reaper protocol will just keep coming, keep building, keep growing until it overwhelms any defense. You need to attack. Find where it's building itself and destroy the factories. Find the command nodes and cut them out. Don't wait for it to come to you." "We're not ready for that kind of war," Vakes admitted. "The Confederation has been at peace for 3,000 years. We've forgotten how to fight aggressively." "Then learn again," Jiwoo said, "or die peacefully." That night, the 7 humans gathered in their quarters. They had been given rooms on a Confederation station while the military prepared. It was comfortable, but it wasn't home. Home was gone. "They're not going to be ready in time," Doyen said. "I've been listening to their communications. Most of the Confederation still doesn't believe the threat is real. They think we're exaggerating. They'll believe when the harvesting begins," Yuna said sadly. "But by then it will be too late." Jiho stood by the window looking out at the stars. 20,000 years of drifting. 20,000 years of failure. He had hoped that by warning the galaxy, humanity's sacrifice would mean something, but now he wondered if it would make any difference. "There might be a way," Hajin said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "The Tajan. It's still out there. It's damaged, but the reactor still works. The engines could make one more jump." "What are you suggesting?" Jiho asked. "We use it as bait. We jump the Tajan directly into Reaper territory, draw their forces to us. And when they come, the Confederation fleet hits them with everything they have. We find the command nodes and destroy them. If we can take out enough command nodes, we might disrupt their network, buy the galaxy years or even decades of time." "That's a suicide mission," Minho said. "The Taijin would be destroyed." "We'd be destroyed too," Jiwoo added. "We'd have to pilot it. The ship's systems are too damaged for remote control." Silence filled the room. They all understood what Hajin was proposing. One final mission. One final sacrifice. The 7 last humans dying to save a galaxy that wasn't even theirs. Would it work? Jiho asked. Hajin nodded. The Reaper Protocol has been following our signal for 20,000 years. It knows the Tajin. It will want to destroy us completely. If we jump into the heart of their territory, they'll send everything they have. And that's when the Confederation strikes. Jiho looked at each member of his crew. These people who had followed him across the galaxy. These people who had slept for 20,000 years. These people who were the last of their kind. We failed to save humanity, he said quietly, but we can save them. He gestured to the window to the countless stars beyond. All of them. Every